Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this webinar. Um, I'm just waiting on a few more delegates to join us, and I can just see a few connection issues. So I'm hoping it's okay for everyone, but let me know if it's not. Um, we've got quite a few more people joining us as ever, just coming up to a minute or two past. Okay, most of us are here, so welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to talk about building a privacy career, or your privacy career, and moving up the chain into management and or specialist roles, and how that might look for you. Hopefully, it will be very insightful for you, depending on where you are in your career. Um, Now, in terms of me, I am your host for today and will look after most of the questions and make sure everything runs smoothly. I am the Divisional Director for Training for IT Governance, which is a GRC solutions company. To avoid any confusion, IT governance has been around for well over 17 years, and we'll be moving to a new um, brand, GRC Solutions, and this is a transitional kind of bit for us. So I lead on design and development of training programs, in particular in privacy, cyber, information security, and a kind of broad array of other courses for individuals and companies, depending on needs. Um, I've got a good background in sales and operations, but in particular in educational programs. Um, so I really kind of like the subject, and I hope you all get some direction from this session. That would be one of my biggest hopes. So do let us know as we go through about yourself. There's some surveys and whatnot to give us some information just so we can run a webinar according to how you respond. But also, if any of you need to reach out and have a discussion about things to clarify career objectives or company objectives with myself or your expert for today, Andrew Snow, please do reach out. So let me introduce you to today's specialist, Andrew Snow. Welcome, Andy.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that introduction. Get a bit confusing with two Andys on the call.
Yeah.
So, welcome everybody. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your point of view, you are stuck with me as today's sort of expert. Now, I've been working with IT governance now for just coming up to 7 years. Whilst it says I'm highly experienced in GDPR, data privacy, cybersecurity, yes, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an absolute expert in all of this because, of course, understanding changes. However, I have been in this world since 1998 under the old data protection legislation, seeing organizations move over to the GDPR, but also look at developing people within this field as well. And as such, within IT governance, GRC Solutions Company as it is, I've probably trained in a region of about 2,500, if not a few more, going through our GDPR data protection courses. So my qualifications, if you like, I am a certified data protection officer, certified DPO expert through our relevant course and career structure, if you like, which is what we're going to be taking you through today. But I am also a cyber risk manager, practitioner, also look at payment card industry data security standards, as well as such international standards as ISO 27001, lead implementer, lead auditor for information security management systems. So hopefully, as we go through today, a lot of that will come through. And as the other Andy said, if you do have any questions, queries, concerns, please do use that chat window, submit those questions, and I am sure we'll get there.
Thanks, Andy. So a little bit about us. As a company, we offer end-to-end support for challenges such as data protection, cybersecurity, achieving certification in 27001. We deliver globally. There's nowhere we haven't really delivered, but our primary kind of base is the UK. We're always on top of industry changes. The introduction of AI being one of the biggest and most recent changes to adjust to, and it's not uncomplicated, obviously. As a business and the experts within the business, we stay right on top of these um, changes and challenges, and that's essentially what makes us industry leaders in those areas. Now we have a host of websites, but essentially, whether you need training, if you just want a simple read, so a book, or whether you need some specialist consultancy advice, IT governance, very uniquely can provide all of those for you. And it is a differentiator to, let's say, specialist training companies or a specialist consultancy company. We can do all of it. So like we've alluded to, these are our key service areas. Today we're talking about data protection in particular, but all of these areas are important if you're in data protection, and we'll talk about more about that shortly. Just a few reminders. You'll obviously be muted through the session, but if you do want to pose a question, you can do that on the top right. It should have a box with a question mark. Post your question in there, and when I can interrupt Andy as he's talking through things, we will try to get them answered as soon as we can or towards the end of the webinar. Obviously, post-webinar, you'll get a copy of the slides and a recording. You'll be able to use the webinar to add to your CPD collection if you're needing to maintain any qualifications where CPD annually is a requirement. So for those of you who need that, that's a good thing for you. Andy, talk us through what you're going to cover then, please.
Most certainly, Andy. So we're going to start off with looking at responsibility going through to accountability. How to become the go-to person, the nominated person, the data protection officer within the organization. We're going to look at privacy programs, leading privacy programs, managing data protection compliance, looking at the business case for do we need an in-house DPO or do we go outsource a DPO? We'll look at certification credentials that you might be looking at or wanting to certify yourself or the organization with. A collaboration with different teams and stakeholders within your organization, including external third parties, to address the risks that come with processing personal data. We'll look at some tips and some tools for help you to build on that set of resources that you have to help with that implementation. We'll look at the privacy career pathway, so a proven pathway for advancing your privacy career. Certainly we've helped many people over the years. And then we'll finish off with, hopefully, depending on time, live Q&A. So
Thanks,
back to
Andy.
you, Andy.
Yeah. So before we get going, it would be really helpful to understand for those of you on the webinar, how much data privacy experience do you have? So do you have obviously none all the way up to 10 years? We'll launch the survey now for you. Um, and if you could just take it, oh, we're very quick. You're all very fast today. I don't think I've seen um, that many responses so quickly. Okay, so we've got a good array coming through. We haven't quite finished yet. A few more of you to hit your button if you could, please. But we've got a range of from no experience up to 10 years plus. We've um, got one individual 10 years plus, so substantive experience, but mainly between 2 and 5, up to 2 and 5 years. So that's good to know. Thank you. And then next question is, what training have you had? So if you select the kind of top level that you had, if you haven't had any formal data protection training, obviously that's the number 5 option. And if you have achieved DPO level, then obviously that's number 3. So if we launch that now, please. There you go. If you could select. Great, very quick as well. We're all very efficient today. So we've got a good array again. Some with no training. We have quite a few of you having certified at DPO level. So we do speak to you in particular about what you might do next. That's really interesting. Good. That'll help us context things. Okay, Andy, if you could kick off with this for us, and let's get going on it.
Thank you very much for that, Andrew. So our scope, looking at data, the processing of personal data of an identifiable individual. So depending on whether you are in the UK or whether you're in the EU, really doesn't matter, because we're all going to be using the EU GDPR. But of course, Brexit happened on the 1st of January 2021, and as such, the UK left the EU, and we have a slightly revised UK GDPR now that became effective on as I say, the 1st of January 2021, with that updated Data Protection Act. Now, if you're in an EU country, of course, you will have your own national implementation. So where here we've got the Data Protection Act 2018, you will have your own legislation. However, we've also got to think about the way or where the individuals are resident. So if I'm a UK-based company processing EU resident data, then of course I've got to comply with the UK GDPR, but any additional requirements that are in the EU GDPR, and vice versa. If you're an EU-based company processing UK resident data, you will need to be aware of those. So here in the UK, we have also got another bill going through Parliament at the moment. Under the old Conservative government, there was a data protection digital information bill that didn't get passed before they lost the elections. We've now had the Labour Party in, and they've introduced a data use and access bill. It's already gone through the House of Lords. It's 3/4 of the way through the House of Commons. It's 260, 270 pages of deletes and inserts into a whole raft of data protection legislation and other legislation. Now, you may be aware of such rumours that the DPO is going and is going to be replaced with a senior responsible individual. That was under the old legislation. And when I say the old, the data protection bill that didn't get passed. Under this new legislation, if it does become law, yes, the DPO is still going to be there. Now, the key when it comes to the processing of personal data, the key part is residence. It's not about nationality. It's about where are your data subject's resident. So if I'm a UK-based company processing UK resident data, of course it's going to be the UK GDPR. But then we've got to look at, okay, maybe my data subjects are in the EU. So therefore I now need to be processing under the EU GDPR, the UK GDPR. But then when we're looking at controllers and processors, they could be based anywhere. So again, a UK-based company processing EU resident data, so UK GDPR, EU GDPR, but that cloud service provider, that software solution, that app that is hosting all of that data could be in a third country, i.e. not the UK, not the EU. It could be in Brazil, it could be in Canada, it could be in Australia. So you need to understand where that data is so that you can apply the relevant laws. It's not always just the UK GDPR, just the UK Data Protection Act. So a controller defines the means and purpose of a particular processing activity, whereas a processor is someone who is processing on behalf of a controller, and there must be a contract between them. The type of contract is really dependent on where that processor is, whether it's going to be an international data transfer agreement with the 41-page risk assessment or a controller type processor type contract. And then, of course, there are nuances around processing individuals' data for specific activities where we can use such things as the derogations. But the data subject is a living individual. GDPR only concerns itself with that living individual. But it's how do we process their data? What is in scope? Well, it's any personal data that's part of or intended to be part of a filing system, so paper-based as an example, but also personal data that's processed wholly or partly by automated means, so your electronic systems. If you are processing personal data of a living individual that can be linked or linked to an individual with additional information, it's all in scope. And therefore, you as the privacy lead, the DPO for your organization, needs to be aware of where your data subjects are, where the processing activities are, whether you're the controller, the processor, and whether we need to have that contract in place. Next slide, please, Andy. So looking at the responsibilities of a DPO or an appointed person, because not every organization needs to have a data protection officer. There are certain requirements that set out in the GDPR that we need to have a DPO if you are a public authority, if you're processing large amounts of personal data, special category data, data related to criminal convictions. But if you don't need one, somebody in the business still needs to be taking on the responsibilities. So you may have an appointed person, maybe an information governance manager, data protection manager. Now, of course, they've got to have a good understanding of the data protection legislation, whether that be the GDPR, the Data Protection Act, such others as the Privacy Electronic Communication Regulations. So Article 39 of the GDPR says what the tasks are of the DPO. So as such, you are there to ensure that the organization is meeting its obligations. So you've got to be doing some type of monitoring, auditing to ensure that the organization is meeting its obligations under those privacy laws. But it could also be sectorial guidance around processing HR data, financial data. We've also got to be aware of such things as the contracts. If we are a processor or a controller, there will be contracts, whether that be as simple as an employee contract and how we can process their data to those international transfers. For any new processing activity, we're going to have to look at, do we need to meet or do we meet any of the 28 criteria as to when we need to do a data protection impact assessment? Whilst Article 35 says we do a DPIA in 3 reasons, the 3 occasions, yes, that high risk, but on top of that, you've also got the 10 reasons that the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, has set out. And if you read up on that, it will tell you that you've also got to comply with the Working Party 29 guidance, which gives you another 9 reasons or occasions when you're going to have to do that DPIA. And if you were to come on one of our courses, our practitioner course, then of course we'll give you all of that information around the auditing, around the privacy impact. But you're there to provide advice and guidance to the organisation. And as such, you need to have an awareness of all of the privacy laws, regulations, contracts, etc. Now, of course, you do not need to be a lawyer to be a DPO. As long as you can pick up the legislation, read it, interpret it, and provide the guidance back to the organisation, that's all that's necessary. But understanding that data privacy legislation is always evolving. So certainly here in the UK, we've now got this data use and access bill that's going to make a number of substantial changes to the UK GDPR. But around the world, data protection, again, is ever evolving. And as such, you're going to have to keep yourself up to date with all of that. One of the key things that the organisation has to have in 99.9% of cases, but it's highly recommended, is your ROPA, your record of processing activities. It's going to be a key document that the ICO might want to see if there is a data breach. Now, of course, you're not there to complete this, you're just the custodian of it. But do you have a plan to get that completed? What does it look like? How are we going to get this document up and running? Now, whilst that's a legal requirement under the GDPR, it's going to be a long process. I would never say to an organisation, we've got to get this ROPA done within the next month. It isn't going to happen. I'm going to say to most organisations, give yourself a year. It's a project in itself. Looking at those data protection impact assessments, but not just the ones going forward, the ones that we have in place already, all those processing activities that are currently in place that now need a retrospective data protection impact assessment. What staff training are you providing? One of the biggest areas of risk within the world of processing personal data is staff training. Making sure that everybody has the relevant training for the job that they are doing. And of course, the sales team may not need the same training as the C-suite. So it's targeting the training at the right place. And breach monitoring. Now, on average, we are self-reporting breaches to the ICO at about a rate of 3,000 every month. And that just gives you an idea of the number of breaches, but the fact that it's commonplace. Whilst it's down to you as an organisation to ensure that you are aware of the technical, the organisational measures, backed up by the robust policies, backed up by the training, if somebody comes to you with a breach, do you know exactly what to do? So do you have the policies, processes, procedures, contracts, customers' terms and conditions in place that would allow you to meet that? So when we're looking at putting this into place, yes, the DPO, the appointed person, whoever it is in the organisation. Now, if you are a DPO, it's a standalone job in itself. If you're double hatting as the privacy lead, the appointed person, and you have another position, then it's going to be very difficult to sort of separate this out, because which role takes precedence? Because you have to be doing some type of auditing within the business to ensure compliance against all of the privacy requirements. But they're always changing. And understanding the legislation, what does it mean for the organisation? How can we demonstrate compliance with that? So we could use external consultants to help us monitor those, give us the industry standard as to Okay, yes, I did my course, I did it 2 years ago. Maybe I'm not kept up to date with the latest information. So sometimes going out and getting an external consultancy to come in and do a audit can prove to be very beneficial. You've also got to think about your IT operations, all of the different software solutions that you have within your business. Yes, you should have an information security policy, but who understands it? Who actually reads that policy to fully understand? Because you, as the DPO, the appointed person, you would need to know what that says. You need to know how to implement that along with your information security team. But that also includes the cyber security. Now, of course, if you are a DPO going on to being a DPO, a privacy lead, then this is going to be vital that you have a seat on the incident response team, whether that be cybersecurity or just the incident response team. You've got your business operations, making sure that the different departments know what is expected of them, know what the requirements are under the privacy legislation, that they are meeting those obligations, keeping the data secure, only accessible to those people that need it. Just because you have data of people doesn't give you or your organization carte blanche to do what you want with that data. You have to secure it in a way that is relevant to the risk that it creates. So, what information are you passing to the management team? What KPIs are you briefing on a monthly basis so that the board understand where the risks are, what we're doing right, what the next steps are? Marketing, again, is a big issue for a lot of organizations in the fact that on average, at least, probably about, I say at least, about 5 organizations get reprimanded or fined by the ICO on a monthly basis for doing their marketing wrong. Now, of course, some of that will be a risk-based approach, which is perfectly fine if the organization understands the risks that it creates, which means they would have had to probably have done a data protection impact assessment to fully understand those risks and put it in the privacy risk register. The product development, if you are thinking about change management or buying a new software solution, again, you need to make sure that you fully understand the privacy obligations. Have you asked for a copy of their data protection impact assessment? Are you doing a data protection impact assessment on the way that you are using it? And then when we're looking at the different geographies that are out there, the different jurisdictions that you are working within, do we fully understand the strategic, the commercial requirements? We want to make sure that the organization is doing what it does, but in a compliant fashion, which means, of course, you've got to keep up to date with all of the changes in legislation, regulation, sectorial guidance, the contractual obligations. Andy?
Yep. So this one's yours, Andy.
Okay. Full-time DPO or extension of your remit. Now, again, Article 37 of the GDPR says that you've got to have a DPO in 3 situations. If you're a public body, large-scale processing or processing special categories of data or criminal offence data. So if you are doing one of those 3 things, then you have to have a DPO. Now, one of the things that many organisations get stuck on is this wording large scale. Am I a large scale processor? What makes me a large scale processor? So that's going to be down to such things as the 3 V's: the volume of data subjects, the variety of the data sets, the velocity of the changes of that information. But it could also be looking at other organizations that offer similar services to yourself. Now, if you have a full-time DPO because you meet one of those 3, then that is your standalone job. There can be no conflict of interest arising from additional tasks or duties. And we've certainly had at least 3 pieces of case law now across the EU where the head of governance, risk and compliance, the head of strategy, the head of IT have been the DPO and holding those positions. Those entities have been reprimanded, they've received a fine. So we've got the case law that says that if you are going to be a DPO, it is a full time independent job. You don't have time to be doing anything else. Now, of course, if you're an appointed person, then you could have multiple responsibilities. But other sort of wording that we talk about when we're looking at the appointed person is the information governance manager, the compliance manager, IT or HR manager, data protection coordinator. The list goes on. But there you can have a conflict of interest. The issue becomes, well, which job takes priority? And if there is one that is around the making money for the organization, well, of course, that one's going to take precedence. But compliance, HR, IT, they are jobs in themselves, full time. So where do these people find that time? So one way around it may be looking at an external DPO, someone who in the business maybe goes up to the practitioner level on their training, and then they look at outsourcing the DPO. You don't need to be a DPO to operate at a professional level with commitment. As long as you can demonstrate that training, the qualifications, the career path, then you're meeting those requirements. And that's what we're here, hopefully, to help you with.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think it's a really important area. I'd be interested in the webinar attendees. If you're willing, pop me a message if you're in that category on the left where a full-time DPO is required, and maybe if you're the DPO or whether you have a DPO and in place and you're part of that team, or whether you're on the kind of not it's non-required situation and you're being asked to double or triple hat as often is the case. So that leads us nicely into this question. So we'll run another survey in a second. So like I said, are you a DPO or are you a data privacy lead, or as the answers allude to, are you neither and you just looking to learn more as part of your role? You might be part of a management team but not directly responsible for privacy. You might be hoping to head into the privacy kind of expertise world, which is a great career path because there's a severe shortage of experts in the field. Or are you already there? Are you a privacy lead or a DPO already? So if we could launch the webinar, the survey, please. Thank you. Okay, so we've got a few DPOs, a good few privacy leads, and a large amount of you not a lead or a DPO, but have some data protection responsibility. So that's interesting. Some of you wanting to be get into the field. That's good. Thank you. Okay, reasons to develop through the kind of educational and experience stages to become a DPO professional. Do you need to go all the way to a DPO professional status or not? In some cases, DPO is mandated, as Andy just said, and really it's essential you have the DPO qualification as part of that. If you're on the kind of side of being a lead, privacy lead or leader for your business. Um, it is still very important, but it's not necessarily a full requirement to get to the DPO level. But doing practitioner level training would be very important for you to understand the role well enough in order to do the job well. Um, and the development obviously contributes to like I said, doing your job really well. And for those of you who are building, some of you are very advanced on this call, but some of you are starting out. Definitely opens up career development opportunities. Package, salary, compensation kind of opportunities. Because where there's scarcity of expertise or resource, the kind of compensation that can come just keeps increasing. So it's a fantastic career opportunity. And obviously, if you do take it on and get there, it's a big achievement for you. It's not a small nor easy task. So, Andy, what moving on to the next one, what skills or key skills do our DPOs need?
One of the biggest is going to be the communication skills. You're going to go back to your organization, having done a relevant course or done some CPD. And I would always tell people that have attended any of our courses, don't go back and rush into anything. Mull it over, come up with a plan, take it to the relevant stakeholders within the organization. How are we going to shape the privacy program? How are we going to get people to change? Now, change management, nobody likes change management. So we've got to find a way of influencing, guiding the relevant stakeholders into those changes. Ideally, working on the basis of reward. And if that doesn't work, then of course we would then go into the risks. Well, if we don't do this, what are the risks? You also have an important part to play when it comes to information security risk management. Certainly when it comes to things like data breaches and providing advice and guidance. You may be the person who looks after the record of processing activities. So you may have included the risk register with your record of processing activities. But of course, as part of that, you would be monitoring the risks. You need to provide the relevant information back up to the board, the C-suite, on the risks that you as an organization are facing from the different processing activities. And you'll need to be able to, again, shape the way that the organization moves on with that. As I said earlier, you don't need to be a legally trained person to be a DPO or an appointed person, as long as you can pick up the legislation, interpret that legislation, along with sectorial guidance, contractual obligations, if you've signed up to any of the certification schemes, then of course, yes, you can be a DPO. But it's keeping up to date with the knowledge. Every time there's a challenge to a piece of the GDPR legislation, it could be coming from the Courts of Justice of the European Union, it could be coming from the ICO. We need to make sure that all of the information that we have is the latest information. The ICO, as an example, have been reviewing a lot of their web pages over the last few months, certainly changing their guidance on certain things like data protection impact assessments. They worked on a 9-step process, but now it's dropped back down to a 7-step process. But if you do a search for DPIAs, you'll find that there's 5 or 6 pages, but only one of them is relevant. Would you be able to point out the one that is relevant to your organization? You need to be able to communicate with the leadership team. You need to have leadership and management skills so that you can go in at board level, make those recommendations, provide advice and guidance. You will be speaking with different department managers within the business. That could include such things as third party processes. So, having those leadership, good management skills are going to be very beneficial for you. And attention to detail and problem solving. We know that the GDPR is a risk based law. But really, what we need to be doing is finding the solutions to the issues, the risks that we identify. And that will include such things as problem solving, having a keen eye for detail when you're reviewing contracts to ensure that the contracts that you have in place meet the current understanding. Now, of course, if it's a third country, i.e., a non adequacy country, then yes, we've got the International Data Transfer Agreement. But if it's an Article 28 controller processor contract, then what are the requirements? What are the bits that are being missed? So having that keen eye on the detailed policies, processes, procedures, contracts are a vital part of the skill set that a DPO or an appointed person needs to have.
Thanks, Andy. So I think it's really important in this area where we've got individuals, certainly on this webinar, whereby the knowledge and understanding might not be there or to the level needed, but you know you might be in a leadership or management position. You might understand and operate at a high level across a different kind of segment within the business. You might be brilliant at communicating. You might be great at business casing and rolling out improvements and changes into businesses, and you might be fantastic at reading text and understanding it. It doesn't have to just be legal or regulatory. There's many different areas, including things like project management and stuff like that, where those key skills can be transferred into this kind of data protection or lead privacy role. And the industry needs it. If you've got those kind of base competencies, then learning the regulations and legal requirements is the easy bit. He says with a slight smile. So that leads me into how would you learn about those kind of tricky little bits. Well, these are our courses. You can obviously take courses through any provider in the UK in particular, but in the world, and they will generally follow this format. Obviously, if you're starting at the beginning, and even if you're experienced and you haven't got any qualifications, you have to do it in order. So you would start with the foundational knowledge, which is an intensive one-day overview. And just to say that again, it's intensive. It's a lot to learn in a day, but you kind of only need to learn to a certain extent and get your qualification. Then you would kick on to a practitioner, which is a 4-day event, and that would really get down into kind of more detailed, practical considerations for when you go back to your business or to apply in the future if you're developing. And then there's a DPO officer status. Or course. So that's a 2 or 4-day course. Traditionally, if you take the GDPR foundation, then a practitioner, then you only have to take 2 days of that DPO course. If you're very experienced, I think I'm covering another slide a little bit early here, but you can shorten that learning journey, because you should find the learning a lot easier. Um, and then once you get to that stage, you can kick on to expert and master post that. Now, all in all, you obviously have your kind of certification kind of route way. Again, we've got it on the right there. But application and experience really build up a good grounding for competence in doing well in your job role. Um, if you can, uh, if you're earlier in your career on this subject, getting into projects or making some contributions within your businesses related to being compliant to GDPR, maybe in your department. It gives you kind of experience, access to kind of working with the regulations and applying it effectively in your job role. And it can be quite different, by the way, what you have to think about, whether you're a marketeer, whether you're in HR, whether you're working with special category information or not a lot of information at all. Those things are key to understanding how much risk might be present within your businesses. Now, we have the core pathway. So I've just talked about going FP, foundation practitioner, and your officer. However, it's important to understand the benefit of broader topics. Andy mentioned GDPR as a risk-based kind of regulation. Understanding risk management in general is a key competence to consider. And if you think about if and when things go wrong, having a plan, a business continuity plan, having a response plan, or incident response plan, or cyber incident response plan, um, will mean you can react quicker, you can mitigate problems faster, more effectively, potentially um, saving your business, which in some cases, we've had breaches in the last year, and particularly in the transportation industry, where a simple breach has led to a company going into administration. So the broader context here is understanding data protection is very important, but the broader context, the business continuity, understanding cybersecurity. You don't have to be the specialist. You could be if you want to wear 3, 4 hats, but it's definitely beneficial for you to broaden. And in particular, we've got a few very experienced. We've got 5, 10-year experienced individuals. You may have the DPO certification already. You probably touched. I'd be surprised if you haven't on some of these broader subjects, but it's important. Just like with lawyers, with doctors, you have your continual personal development, and a great way to do that is to make sure your breadth of knowledge is worked on rather than your focused knowledge, which you're probably very adept at by now. So again, development can be linear. You could follow the footsteps there on the left and follow your linear path, but at any point you can step to the side and take either foundational training in any of these areas, just to get your baseline knowledge up, or you could then kick on and take more advanced training where appropriate. The kind of courses I'd recommend in here in particular are if you look at risk management line and then you look at the second course, that's a very short, that's a 1-day incident response management. It's an excellent course for some of the things I alluded to earlier. And if you look at the bottom under privacy, privacy information management systems. You've got a couple of products there, which the lead implementer is the important one, really, for you as practitioners. That is the ISO standard for privacy. So that would provide you with ways of, I've lost the word, I think, but mitigating, what are the words, and
Demonstrating non-negligence in meeting your
uh,
requirement.
yeah, well, within 20, sorry, I'm going to get the word, 27,001, you have a list of controls. Is it controls? Controls.
Yeah.
Where the controls are there to kind of close the door on potential risks. So recommended controls, and then you kind of do an assessment of your business, and then utilize the potential control um, to reduce the risk. I don't think it ever gets to zero, but it's a useful course to take that one to give you some of the tools to mitigate the risks. Now, based on your starting point, if you look on the left, we have a few with no experience, but you want to gain the experience. So if you follow that pathway through, I talked about the foundation. We have a Super Plus product, which, um, given kind of if you've got no experience, the 1 day foundation on its own is very intensive. The Super Plus gives you the digital materials for the course and 12 months access. So what you'd be able to do is take it at a slower pace, um, work through the materials a bit, and then do the training course. Um, and then if you do okay there, you can then flow through the pathway through practitioner to accelerated. If I skip down to the 5 year kind of experience, we've got a good few of you on the webinar with that level of experience. You can do a shortened version of the foundation and then straight into a 4 day training course. That's essentially 5 days of training. You end up certified at DPO level um, rather than doing 7 days worth of training. Now I'm just going to kick on because I just noted on time we're kind of running slightly behind. Andy, this one's for you, I think.
Yeah, certainly. So when we're looking at developing you as a DPO for your organization, for whatever your next steps may be, we need to ensure that we build those competencies for you to get those professional qualifications that support not just who you are, the knowledge that you have, but it lets the organization know that you have those skills. Now, it's not just the GDPR, it is not just the Data Protection Act. It comes with you needing to gain the experience, the knowledge in doing auditing. One of the requirements of a DPO is that you have to monitor compliance, which means effectively you've got to be doing some type of auditing. So whether that's looking at ISO 27 718, I don't know why, but my screen's suddenly gone blank. I don't know whether anybody else is having that problem, but my slide has just disappeared. But
I'll
you,
take it on, Andy, from you. Don't worry.
there we
I
go.
mean, is it come back to you?
No, it's come back now.
Okay.
Um, Also, thinking about implementing your ISMS, your information security management system. Now, that looks after all of the information management within the business. But you've also got the addition now of ISO 27701 that gives you the PIMs. Why would we want to be doing that? Because the ICO has said that if you implement these, then you have met the requirements of um, Article 24, the controller's responsibilities by putting in place the technical and organizational measures to manage the risk that you create. Certainly, having that cybersecurity incident response and risk management is going to assist in you understanding the data breaches, the information security incidents that happen that lead to data breaches. So just again, looking at the time, Andy, back over to you, I think, for the next one.
Yeah, I'm just going to skip a few slides here, but within the deck, you'll have access to useful resources. Um, you just click on the links when you get the pack, and it'll take you through to them. We've talked about qualifications, experience, and general knowledge. If you follow IT governance or GRC solutions, there's loads of updates. So you've got your kind of qualification stuff. You've got getting into building experience through your current job role, maybe projects, or you might already be leading, so you'll be building that knowledge anyway. But stay in touch with the industry, like Andy alluded to, throughout the webinar, through various news feeds and posts. But IT governance one is written by experts and points at some of the key things you should be thinking about. Just a quick survey again, just to kind of get a feel for what we presented. Some of you earlier in the journey, some of you further on. Which of these kind of courses do you think might be your logical next step? Trudy, if we could just launch the survey. So a good few of you thinking of going all the way through to DPO professional. Good on you. And some of you looking at the kind of foundational level stuff. Thank you. Whatever direction you kind of want to go in, talk to one of our experts. Again, you can fill out a form by following the talk to an expert link at the bottom there. When you get your pack, some of the imminent courses are listed there. We have a whole host of other dates available. Because you've attended the webinar, I'm going to give you 25% off. Trudy managed to persuade me to do that for you, so enjoy that. And I just want to kind of get to, before we run out of time, questions. And interestingly, I think this is the first webinar we've done the whole lot, Andy. We haven't had a question. I think one's just popped in. There we go. Thanks, Beth. Okay, so slightly stagnant in current role as compliance analyst. You work under the company's DPO. That's good. And there isn't much room for growth. So we'd be happy to progress to DPO, but it isn't possible where you are. Is there another career route to continue that doesn't involve becoming a DPO? And you already have the foundation and practitioner certifications. I think a key part of this, Beth, is you have got a fantastic opportunity working under the DPO to gain experience. So you may have already gained that experience, in which case you're already a strong or very good candidate for either specific roles where they're advertised, because you'd be surprised at the lack of experience in the industry, which I'm not saying in a negative way, but you're having been qualified at F&P already and having worked in a company that has a DPO, needs a DPO, and you kind of are in there gaining the experience, you're already incredibly experienced. So if you're looking for a challenge, don't know if I want to say, maybe look out there and apply for one or two roles. So you got two opportunities. One is your current situation, just maybe ask for more responsibility from DPO, take some of the pressure off. In terms of getting the reward of being experienced, sometimes you have to leave the company you're in. And what I would say is I've lost some very, very adept, expert individuals personally over the last 7 years to, higher salaries, great career opportunities for them. And I'm hoping it doesn't happen too often, but it happens. Good question. Has anyone else got a question? We are close to being out of time. We're a very quiet bunch. If not, I really appreciate your time on this webinar. I hope we gave you some food for thought. I hope we gave you some helpful information. Do reach out if you want to chat to me or to one of my colleagues. Just fill out the speak to an expert form. And if you need to and want to talk to Andy Snow, our expert, then we will do our best to arrange a chat for you. I wish you all the very best for the day. Thanks, Andy, for delivering. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you.